Hey everyone, Sean Chandler here. This is my quick review of the movie Midway. Midway is a historic war drama, essentially telling the events of the Battle of Midway, starting with the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and then it kind of tracks the intelligence officers and the pilots through the time period between Pearl Harbor and Midway, and then the Battle of Midway itself is kind of the third act of this film. And you see things both from the American and the Japanese side. You see it from the pilot side as well as the strategist, the intelligence side, a little bit of the political side too, and kind of see all of it from these different perspectives. The movie is from director Roland Emmerich. He's most famous for making a whole bunch of movies where the world is blown to pieces. When you're talking about Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, he loves to blow up the world. And then he made a war film about, well, World War II and Pearl Harbor getting blown to pieces. So he just seems fascinated with that type of thing. So let's start talking about the good. The best thing I can say about this movie is that it is a big, glossy take on some very powerful historic events. The budget for the film is on the screen. They got a whole bunch of A-list actors inside of the film, used top technology for these big gigantic sequences, and then just the material in and of itself is inherently emotional. And so you're watching a film that is a very slick, glossy production of a profound story. For certain people, me being one of them, that sort of thing pretty much always works for me. It's fairly straightforward in the way that it tells its narrative. I mean, it's linear by its nature. You've got these different character arcs that are based off real people that actually existed. And so, you know, it definitely touches on the things that you want inside of a war movie, but it does so in a way that feels very much like a big budget blockbuster film. As you go through it, it hits all the notes that you want it to hit. You have people that you like that die, and then you have the heroic moments. You have kind of the tension as you're wondering what's going to happen inside of these battles. Like as you get into the Battle of Midway, like I can't recall a war movie or anything like that where there were so many misses. Like just where our heroes go in for the big hit, or they like build the tension of like, and then this guy pulled around to like go in for his final run and people sacrificed themselves and then he missed. Like this movie had so much of that, and you can like feel the tension as it happens inside of the film. And that's a good thing. I would say that's a good thing that it like doesn't just play into they miss one time and then they're successful. Like, no, this movie, they miss so many times and so many people die in order for someone to miss inside of it, that it kind of hurts at some of these sequences. Another thing I enjoyed about the film is that it doesn't really demonize the Japanese soldiers. It's very much told from the perspective of they bombed Pearl Harbor, so the Americans are going to go get them. And so the Americans are perceived of as the ones that we want to be victorious, but we want them to be victorious over the Japanese Empire as a whole and the leadership of the Japanese army and things like that. But the specific troops themselves aren't specifically demonized for the most part. It doesn't try and make them seem like the ones responsible for so much of this stuff. And I appreciated that about the film, and kind of understanding the complexities of wars and the soldiers that are following orders. And just because you're on one side of the other doesn't mean you're the good guy or the bad guy. There's just a lot more complicated than that. I thought that was a nice touch. But at the same time, along those same lines, they also didn't kind of water down the language used by the American troops about the Japanese soldiers. And so the American soldiers are using language that would be a racial slur in the year 2019, because that's what they said back in the 1940s. That was the language that they used, and it didn't try to give kind of a 2019 cultural sensitivity to 1940s soldiers battling Japan after their friends had died. Like I appreciated that it felt like guys saying something that will make you feel uncomfortable as you're hearing it, like, oh, they're saying that a lot, because it's not okay to say that now, but that is how they talked back then. But as you go into this movie, you have to know you are going into a big budget, slick take on the Battle of Midway from the director of Independence Day. So with that said, let's move on to the bad. And essentially what I described somewhat as the positive is also kind of the negative, that it it feels like what every war movie is supposed to be. It touches every single beat. It has these character arcs. And so a lot of people go see this movie and just kind of feel like we've seen this before and we've seen it a whole lot better. Like, this is not a war movie classic by any means. For me, it was good enough. It did what it was supposed to do, but it doesn't add anything new to the genre. Those are some like technical problems inside of it. Some of the ADR, the kind of voice replacement, the overdubbing for the movie was definitely off. Like, I watched it and I went like, that's kind of weird. And then on my car ride home, the guy I went to go see it with, he was like, yeah, did you notice like their mouths frequently didn't match and the overdubbing was off? I was like, yeah, there was some problems inside of it, which is weird for a movie that with a budget this big that they would have so many ADR issues inside of it. Also, there's some accents inside of it that are they come off really weird, especially our lead character. I'm pretty sure he's a British guy doing this like 1930s, 40s Jersey accent that is just kind of like so over the top that it just kind of like comes off like a parody of that accent rather than kind of flowing organically. I don't know how much of that is just the, his limitations as an actor or trying to get him to do this accent that's so different from his actual voice. How much of that is just simply people don't talk like that now. So anytime you hear someone with as thick of an accent as someone might have actually had at that time period in that context doing that thing, it just sounds like a weird, goofy interpretation. I'm not sure which one it is, but watching the movie, as soon as these guys started talking, I was like, oh boy, I am not crazy about that. Along those same cringy lines, some of the lines of dialogue, well, most of the lines of dialogue come off like war movie cliches. They're all the lines of dialogue you're supposed to say in a movie like this. And that's kind of frustrating. Like, there's just so many things of like, we're going to do our best out there and I'm going to bring him back if I can. And like all this stuff, like, we got to do it because there's no one else. Like, every kind of generic go get 'em type line is somewhere inside of this movie. You can hear the whole trailer is just made up of these sorts of instructions and like, they're telling us we got to go south. I'm gonna ignore that order. Like, there's a whole bunch of that stuff inside of the film. It's just the cliches of the genre are so present throughout the entire film. And finally, it's just kind of a rough narrative to translate into a film like this and have a smooth narrative, because the inherent nature of it is that the battle had these different locations and ships are in different places and coming from different carriers and attacking different fleets and things like that, and there's intel information, so a lot of characters, a lot of locations, different sides to it. In which case, in the middle of the battles, you didn't know which one were the American and which one of them were the Japanese ships at times. You didn't know what the objective was because there was just so much information that they're kind of telling you, and you knew that kind of the idea of what we're trying to do, but you didn't really understand the specific objectives in the moment until like our ships are like flying towards that ship right there, in which case you go, that's what we're heading towards, that's what we need to do. Like inside of the battle, there's this sequence with a submarine and what it's trying to do. And then it's like the submarine just disappears from the plot entirely. And it's like I think what happened was we transitioned from being submarine centric to plane centric, but it's pretty unclear with the way that the narrative is structured. And so I don't know if that was a screenwriting problem, director problem, or just it's really tough to translate this specific battle to film, but it definitely didn't flow as naturally as it probably should have. Real quick, before I give you my final score on this one, tell me what you thought down below in the comments section. For me, it was a good, not great war film. It hit all the right notes. For some people, that's what's going to make it too generic and cliche, is that it is hitting all the notes it's supposed to hit, but I appreciated that about the film. It's a B overall. It's a 7 out of 10 on the entertainment scale, and if you're a World War II war movie fan, you should give this one a try, but keep your expectations in check. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out that video right over there. I don't even know what YouTube is recommending to you. Wherever it sends me, let me know in the comment section where it sent you. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.